2004, and for that matter, the election of 2000. Everybody knows it. The voters know it. The candidates know it. The courts know it. And the evidence proves it.
In the state's capital, a shortage of voting machines in predominantly African-American communities was created, even though the Secretary of State knew far in advance that 102,000 new voters were registered in that county alone.
We knew going in there were going to be lines. It was one of those things where, because 102,000 more people voted in this election across the entire county, there were lines across the entire county.
Look at this. Columbus, Ward 1B, 1,175 voters in the year 2000, 1,620 in the year 2004. Voter registration up 27%. Machines, 2 are gone. 18% increase in registration. They took away a machine. 24%. These are all in Columbus. They took away a machine.
The accusation currently is that the deployment of machines migrated from the inner cities where they had been already placed out to more affluent Republican areas of town, and that this disenfranchised particularly African-American voters and added votes to the Republican side of the ticket. So,
in my affluent, predominantly Republican community, where 62% of the people voted for George Bush in the 2000 election, lines were not a problem.
I agree with millions of American citizens that no American should have to wait 4 hours to cast a vote.
This was entered into evidence by the Board of Elections. They have 2,866 machines available. Through a public records request, we found out that only 2,741 voting machines were delivered. What happened to the missing 125 machines, and where did they come from?
We did our voting machine placement, our allocation, purely upon registration and past turnout statistics, nothing else.
This shows the machine allocation. Bexley, affluent, upper middle class suburb, right next to the east side of Columbus. No missing machines. Canal Winchester, suburb on the southwest side of the city. Again, no missing machines. As soon as we come to Columbus, where the black population is concentrated, where every elected official on the city council and the mayor are Democrats, somebody has taken the machine identification number and blacked it out. And then they blacked out another one. And then they blacked out another one. Take a look at what happens once you get into the inner city. Virtually every precinct here, somebody has come along and blacked out these machines. As we count it up, it comes to 125 machines. 74% of all the African-American wards had less machines than in the primary. This list would have come from the Board of Election. The director is Matt Damschroeder, the former chair of the Franklin County Republican Party.
The state, using federal dollars, has to purchase one machine for every 200 registered voters. In Franklin County, had we done that for this election, we would have had to purchase about 1,500 more machines at a cost of $5,000 to $6,000 per machine.
There was a system of challenges set up by the Republican Party where they went out, like the Night Riders did before the Voting Rights Act, and said, that person shouldn't vote.
They need to get them people out of there. They trying to tell me how to vote. I already know who I want to vote for.
Suppose 500 blacks went into a white neighborhood to challenge their votes. It would be totally unacceptable.
The election is over, and the results couldn't be clearer. Why are we here wasting time on silly, Hollywood-inspired conspiracy theories?
I wonder, I really do, I wonder if it were your wife who was denied the right, or your child, would you be making the same arguments?
What happened in 2004 in Ohio was an ugly little echo of what happened in Florida in 2000. You had a Secretary of State of Florida in 2000, Katherine Harris, who basically reappeared as Secretary of State of Ohio, a guy named Ken Blackwell.
The provisional balloting process, we thought, would provide us an opportunity to assure that people who weren't sure of their voting location, who had been disenfranchised, an opportunity to vote.
Like I said, I lived in that residence where my address is for 20 years. The church that I've been going to vote is right around the corner from me. All of a sudden, I got to go from there and be inconvenienced to come all the way over here to vote, and I'm not even in a system. And they try to send me from here to go over there so that my vote wouldn't count for the provisional.
What happened in Ohio was that our Secretary of State decided to make inconsistent rulings with regard to the use of a provisional ballot.
Blackwell made such decisions as, for the first time ever, if you go to the wrong precinct, we're going to give you a provisional ballot, and that ballot then won't count.
I got my card in the mail stating where I should go vote. I stood in line, I gave them my card, and I voted for the last election, and I always vote here. But this election, my name is not on the list, and I had to vote a provisional ballot.
Mr. Kenneth Blackwell, I'm ashamed to say an African-American man, has failed even to follow Ohio's election procedures, let alone procedures that comply with federal law and constitutional requirements.
I'm just photographing for election protection.
We're waiting in line to vote.
Okay, now we're walking down a path into the woods.
Earth to Barbara Boxer. George Bush has been freely and fairly re-elected President of the United States.
Blackwell, just as Katherine Harris did 4 years earlier, made a series of decisions on how the vote should be counted. Now you have to understand that Harris was the chairwoman of the Bush election campaign in 2000 while she was in charge of counting the vote for the state. Blackwell was chairman of the Bush campaign in Ohio while he's in charge of counting the vote. It's the same political fix.
Our ancestors who died for the right to vote certainly must be turning over in their graves.
Even if I let them in, they're not going to let me vote. That's okay.
There's something wrong with our democracy. More and more of our citizens are growing uneasy. And I hear people on the other side saying, you should get over it.
Gentleman's time has expired.
When people died for the right to vote, when people suffer for the right to vote, the right of every vote to be counted must be upheld.
Our Vice President has told us to expect war for the next generation. It is not only our responsibility, but our right to demand full democracy at home. And we do that by our actions today. This is not merely about bitterness or a recount. This is about a blackout. It's time to end the blackout and shine the lights on our precious right to vote.
So where's the outrage? Americans grow up with the idea that we are the great font of democracy. And we were, but we are no longer committed to it. We'd rather hold on to the myth than fight for the reality. You know, the Democratic Party saw the writing on the wall, but there was something else to it, which is that these are black voters. And we have an apartheid vote counting system in America. We have an apartheid political system in America and an apartheid news media system. If a subject is the black voter, it ain't a story.
back.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you very much.
2004, and for that matter, the election of 2000. Everybody knows it. The voters know it. The candidates know it. The courts know it. And the evidence proves it.
In the state's capital, a shortage of voting machines in predominantly African-American communities was created, even though the Secretary
votes to the Republican side of the ticket. So,
in my affluent, predominantly Republican community, where 62% of the people voted for George Bush in the 2000 election, lines were not a problem.
of state knew far in advance that 102,000 new voters were registered in that county alone.
We knew going in there were going to be lines. It was one of those things where, because 102,000 more people voted in this election across the entire county, there were lines across the entire county.
Took away a machine, 24%. These are all in Columbus. They took away a machine.
The accusation currently is that the deployment of machines migrated from the inner cities where they had been already placed out to more affluent Republican areas of town, and that this disenfranchised particularly African-American voters and, add.
Look at this. Columbus, Ward 1B, 1,175 voters in the year 2000, 1,620 in the year 2004. Voter registration up 27%. Machines, 2 are gone. 18% increase in registration. They took